Girls on Tour is a book club that aims to keep us connected while shining a light on some badass women and gender diverse people within the entertainment industry. Touring can be incredibly boring and sometimes very isolating. Having stories to connect over can make us feel close no matter how far apart we are. Okay, on a personal note, I got bangs again yesterday. So on one hand, I'm about to be everybody's problem. On the other hand, I'm in that phase where, you know, when they wash your hair and style it for you, and it always A, immediately drops, and B, is like not the way that you would ever do your own hair, so it's a bit weird. For those watching the podcast at home, I need you to mind your business, because currently, from some angles, I look like an elf, and from the others, I look like the love child.
I'm so ready.
Lord Farquaad and the berries and cream guy.
Also, before we begin,
hey,
Tama, you were in the background of this. Are you okay to be in the background?
No,
we're okay for you to be in the background.
This is Tama.
Look at that beautiful mullet right there. Also, Laura's around here somewhere, you might see.
Oh, also, I got another session done on my back tattoo the other day, so if I'm sitting like Quasimodo.
I love all the caveats. You're like, don't worry about my head, don't worry about my back.
My posture, shit.
What are my caveats for today? If I just stop knowing how to say words, that's none of my business. This is going to be so chaotic. Who are you? Tell us.
Some speculate that my mother cloned herself and unleashed me on the world like a curse as her revenge.
Yep, and I'm one of those truthers.
Others just call me Monique, and I'm a sound human. I work in sound. I also have been forced into doing all other kinds of tech, because as soon as you're a sound engineer, they're like, you do lights too, cool, yeah. In many different parts of the entertainment industry. Currently, I'm touring with a big old musical. I'm on the tail end of a 2-year tour.
Who am I? That's what I say to myself in the mirror every morning. Who are you? I'm Bryony. You can call me BB. I am a marriage celebrant. I just do stuff and I vibe, and
yeah.
I'm just living my life, trying not to go absolutely insane.
Okay. The book. When we were talking about our anticipated releases for this year, you told me about this book.
Yep.
And I went, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And then I waited after it was released to read it while I was in the Middle East. And what a good choice that was. I read it while I was in the desert. I read it when I was in Abu Dhabi, and I was like, this is so beautiful. I'm in my old age. The luxury that I want is going on little holidays specifically to match the vibe of the book I'm reading. That is the new luxury that I want. Like if I'm reading something that's like about forests, I want to go on a little holiday to somewhere in a forest. If I'm reading something about like mountains, I want to go to the mountains.
That's exactly right.
Snow, all the things.
The only reason to be rich.
Yeah. So I read that there, and it was so dramatic and so beautiful. And Faebound is one of my favorite books I think I've ever read ever. The magic system is incredible. The vibes were incredible.
Oh.
And when we talk about like representation in books, there's a way that people can do that is really box tick diversity representation.
Look, there's a gay person.
There's a gay. There's a person of color.
There's a disabled person.
Yeah.
There's this.
Yeah.
Whereas this book, flawlessly.
Yeah.
Flawlessly. There's no way to even say, it's just done so perfectly that everything feels so natural and it's not a spectacle.
Everybody has a place, but they're not a novelty.
Yes.
And also, all of these people are main characters. They're not like a goofy little sidekick character. They are a main character. Yeah. One of our main characters has a disability. One of our main characters is gay. And all of them are people of colour.
Yeah.
And pop off to you, I say.
The world is built so beautifully, and we've spoken about this before, that it is so beautiful to see and to read fantasy books that aren't from like a white Western lens, learning about so many different like cultures and what their magic system, like, you know, stuff like that. It's just beautiful.
Can you please confirm for me?
Yes.
Elves and the Fae, which one's a which? Because I kept getting that mixed up.
In this book?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're elves?
So...
And the Fae are the ones who are perceived to be gone.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, because this is how I remembered it, because I too was struggling to figure out who was elves and who was Fae.
Bound.
They're bound.
Oh, it's in the title of the book. Doing a wraparound.
Yeah.
So,
doing a wraparound.
In this book, we follow two sisters. We're in this world, this beautiful world, where there are 3 different kinds of beings, people.
Yeah.
Sure. There are humans, there are Fae, and there are elves. And they were all created by different gods and given different powers, which is cool. There was then a prophecy that Fae and humans eradicated, gone, bye-byes. So we follow our 2 main characters. They are elves. Lettel and Yiren. They are sisters. They live in a time where there is a major war going on over this one particular power source crystal thing called Freda.
Freda crystal.
Freda sounds right.
We searched everywhere to find the actual pronunciations. We looked at the audiobooks, we listened to the audiobooks, and I just need every author out there. I would really love it if everyone just put a little page in their book or did a little video where they you don't have to explain anything to me, the pronunciation of each thing, just the way that they want it to be said.
This is the Rysand, fucking thing of it all.
Can I just tangent for 1 second and tell you a very funny story? We can cut this out.
Of you, we can't.
When I was a young person and Twilight first came out, me and my sister read it separately, and we were talking one day and she goes, yeah, what about that character Carlizzle? And I was like, wind it back. What are you saying to me right now? And she was like, yeah, Carlizzle. And I was like, Carlisle? And she was like, oh shit, I've never seen that name written down before.
And he will never be Carlisle ever again.
Carlizzle.
That is quite literally my favorite thing I've ever heard. Your sister get exposed a lot.
I know, and I'm so sorry, but she's like my main source of
all wisdom, joy, and
vibes and love.
We love you, man.
Yeah.
This one was a time because this is the first time I've read a book that had a lot of names of like different like new fantasy creatures that I couldn't figure out how they were pronounced either anyway. But usually when that happens, I'm like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm just reading this. I know what that is. That's good. But now I do this. So I was like, fuck, now I have to go talk about it on the internet. I'm going to look like a dumbass.
Yeah.
So we're all dumbasses together. That's what I'm saying. And if you do happen to know I can't even speak English, language I've been speaking my whole life for the last 27 years. If we mispronounce anything and you know the correct pronunciation, let us know so that we can all not look like dumbasses together.
And we are happy to be told. We're not those people that'll be like, I don't care how it's spelled. I'm going to do it.
Because I do
Just
care.
let me know, please. I would love to know.
So we follow. This is
going really well.
So we follow Lettel and Yiren. Yiren is a soldier in the war that is going on.
A general? Excuse me.
Lieutenant?
She was made a general at the beginning. And then she,
general. We've got a general. And Lettel is she a seer yet? Is that what they called it at the start?
I think it's a diviner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
she does like seer, like general prophecy seer vibes. They read animal entrails to tell the future. Hot. We love.
Yeah.
Go off witches. They grew up in massive poverty because of the war that's going on. We follow them as Yiren gets promoted into a new position, and then something goes very wrong and she gets exiled.
Yeah. So quickly into the book as well.
So quickly. We jump right in.
Yeah.
It is all killer, no filler in this book. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
She gets exiled and she starts to try and think about ways that she can get let back in, pretty much. And she sees this.
Obia is how they say it in the audiobook. Obia.
She sees an obia, which is like this big cat with horns.
Yes. And how, because when I was reading it, I was trying to imagine what the big cat with horns looked like. Would you say it's like, because they use the hide for drums, like buffalo skin, like cow hide, or are we thinking like more like a tiger hide? Like
I imagined like a panther with like really short hair and then like antlers.
You're so real for that. And like
that's
big enough to ride.
Yeah. That's what I pictured, because they're big kitties, but they're very much little babies still.
Little babies.
In the elf side of things, these creatures are magical and they skin them. People read their entrails first of all, but then they also skin them to put their hide on drums that they then use as a weapon, which is sick as fuck.
Yeah.
And the older and the more powerful that the creature is, the better the weapon will be. So she sees like the biggest old one she's ever seen, and she's like, I'm going to kill this animal and bring it back as an offering, and then maybe I'll be in their good graces again, and like blah, 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 blah. So she starts hunting this thing. Because she's been exiled, her sister goes after her. And there's really nothing else that we can tell you without spoiling. Even that, probably a little bit spoilery.
No, that's on like a lot of that is on the back of the book.
Not a spoiler then.
Yeah.
No. And that is where we're going to have to leave it.
And if you haven't read the book, please go away now and read it.
The magic system in this book was one of the coolest things I've ever read in my entire life.
Drums?
Yeah.
Drums as weapons?
Yeah.
That is so hot.
Sick as hell.
Love that.
So sick as hell.
And like, I don't know if that's just something that has never been introduced to me before, or if it's something that's like quite well known, or did Saara El-Arifi like make it up? Love it. Whatever it is, I love it.
Well, she has a other book.
It's called Drumfire or something, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's what they call it in the book.
So are they all
I don't think they're interconnected.
Worlds?
I don't. But I do love that we're both absolutely fumbling speaking words today.
It's just normal words. I can't do it. I'm too excited.
I took a highlight of a description of the Obia big kitty. I took a highlight. It said at least 8 foot long from horn to tail. Its black fur was glossy like it was coated in the night sky. Its head so similar to a leopard's and yet infinitely more ethereal, cocked to the left. The 2 horns atop its head glimmered white with smaller branches weaving from it like a crown. And my note said, kitty.
That's a baby. That's a
baby. Lettle says, she didn't mourn the beast, only the magic it could have harboured if it had been fully grown. These creatures were born to be harvested. They were the source of all magic, and so were reaped like corn for the sustenance of civilization. Which, first of all, how beautiful. How do you describe something getting killed so beautifully?
And just the fact that the elves, that's their opinion of them.
No more, there can't be anything else without spoilers. The magic system's incredible. The book is incredible. If you want really cool politics, really cool magic system, if you want family and like sister relationship bonding, if you want prophecies, if you want gay stuff.
Yeah. And I will say before we go into the spoiler section, everyone's been reading Fairy Smart. Let's be so real. If you love Fairy Smart, but you've been wanting something that is higher fantasy and actually has that world building and has like depth and something to hold on to, this is the book. This is the book you've been waiting for this whole time.
Because there is sexually explicit material
in
the book, but it's not the point of the book.
No.
It makes sense. It's like when you watch a movie. And there's like a sex scene and you're like, cool, anyway, bye, moving on. It's not at all the focus of the book. The romance, I wouldn't even say is the focus of the book, because all of our romantic connections are also based off of and have like a layer of like political conflict in them.
I will say I usually struggle with high fantasy stuff because too many words, my little brain can't do it. But this one ate that shit up.
I think that's because it's written so beautifully. Saara, babes, you did it.
Sorry, you're doing it.
You did it. You're doing it.
It's happened, and we'll do it again when you do the second one.
We'll do it again when the next book comes out in February next year. We didn't make you wait too long because I will have a breakdown. Did I read this in January and go, oh, a whole year?
Oh, okay. Great.
This is great. Awesome.
Spoilers, it's spoiler time, bitch.
I just want to say one thing to you.
Say it with your full chest.
I want to quote something that I highlighted.
Okay, I'm ready.
He wields his jawline like a weapon.
And if that isn't the most perfect description ever.
And then also, there was something magnetic in the way his profile tugged at her gaze and it frustrated her. Same, babes.
Been there, babes. I'm not an English major, so I don't know the words for things, but the way she describes things is just so delicious. I just want to eat it. I want to put it in my mouth.
Reading this author's work is like going to buy a fancy bottle of wine as opposed to drinking a goon bag. Usually I'm drinking goon bags.
We've all been
there. And at this point I had my pinky out and I felt better than everybody. I felt better than everyone.
I'm drinking that shit out of a teacup, bitch. Let's begin at the beginning. Let's talk about Salwa. Because I have so many thoughts and I don't know if I'm...
so intriguing for a character who's in the book so little.
And she pissed me off from the moment I saw her.
This is a perfect example of how perfect the character writing in this book is, because you are uneasy about this character from the jump, even though she's presented as a love interest, and the person that you're reading through the perspective of is
obsessed with her.
She's beautiful, wow, amazing, la 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 la. Even then you're still like,
who is it's do you know what it is? It really felt like when your friend is dating someone new and they're talking all of these beautiful things about them and you're like looking at this man and you're like, or this person, and you're like, who are you talking to right now? Like, who are you talking about right now? Because I'm feeling not the same vibes that you're feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're looking straight through the romance and going, the vibes are not there, babes.
And that's it. It's looking through the romance because she's sitting there like, oh my God, I love her and blah, blah, blah. She gave me a little drum, yay. We're looking through it when we see these moments of like, The Freda crystals, it's like the most valuable resource they have. And in the first moment that we meet her, she's wearing them in her hair as accessories, like as beads, which pop off. People who are queens and rulers, blah, 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 whatever, flaunt their wealth. But from the perspective of the person who was in poverty and then became a soldier to try and help end the war, to help the children, the comment is made of the beads in her hair could feed a family for like however long. Oh.
So this woman's horrible.
When we meet Lettel and we start getting POVs from Lettel's perspective, Lettel hates this bitch.
And I trust Lettel. I trust her.
Unfortunately, we all reach a time in our lives where we realize our sisters are right.
And if your sister doesn't trust someone, you shouldn't trust that person either.
She's like, don't like her. And it's because of those war reasons where she's like, look at it. And even, okay, the point where I was like, no, was when she called out her giving that kid a coin.
When she gives her the coin, she's like, here, like, buy yourself some food. She holds the coin in her hand and she says, they sold me for less than this. Yeah. That really situates you in the story so quickly.
And when that's what we see of that situation, and then when all of those people die and she's getting called in to be like, told off for it. And she's like, you know, how much money have you given other kids, blah, 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 that girl ran off or whatever. I was like, oh, that's your concern.
Yeah.
Copy.
That you're losing your soldiers.
You're a bitch.
And when she's like, how much money have you give? And from Yiren's like, I think she doesn't say it out loud, but she says it like she in her mind. She's like, I've given all of it away. As much as I could give, I gave it. And that's how you know that she's better than Salawa.
This is like an overarching theme throughout the entire book, which is the idea that anyone in a position of power like that cannot be a good person. When we meet Comey, we've heard all the stories about him. We've heard how awful he is. We've heard there are people who have suffered so greatly at his hands and he just disappeared, and like all these people who are like, everything's been fucked since him. And then when we meet him, we experience him in the book for so long as like a pleasant character, as a nice character, as a goofy little drunk man, and somebody who speaks about the war in a way that is like quite remorseful, like quite sad. And then towards the end, when we start hearing more about the politics of the Fae working with the elves and that being a thing, he's like, no one's good in war. Like, it's not about being on the right side or the wrong side. Like, it's about surviving and trying to make the war stop.
It really does show you that there are no one is right, no one, like it yeah. Well, in this context, not in real life.
Pila is everything to me. Pila. So when we get to the Fae place that I can't remember the name of because knowing things is not my business. This is me in every book I've ever read where I'm like, and then they go to that city and people are like, you mean this one city in this book I read 5 books ago and I remember it from 2 years later? And I'm like,
wow.
As I'm reading a book, I'm like, anyway.
Give me the faults.
See you later. See you later. Once they get there, which that gave me massive Avatar vibes.
Yeah.
Because of the tree.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, we're connected to the land. Beautiful. When they get there and you start meeting all of the people who are Faebound or who are bound. Do they just call it bound?
I think they call it bound.
Because they call when you're not that being lightless.
Oh, what I really love about that, another tangent, is that even within this beautiful culture that like is one with the land and all of this stuff, they still have people in their community that are othered. Why can't we escape the otherness of people? And there's even like languages that they don't get to speak because like it hasn't been downloaded into their brain.
When we get there and we start meeting all of these characters and we start meeting the Obia as respected familiars basically for the witches out there. When we start meeting them, Yiren binds with Pila, who is a little goofy treasure angel baby
who says the most profound things and then is so goofy as hell.
Such as okay, quick tangent. Somebody called someone lightless. And then it's explained by Golan in this way. Lightless isn't his name, it's his conditioned. It means I'm not Faebound. I've never bonded. Like elves, all of you are lightless. Oh my god, because anytime between the age of 12 and 30 we become Faebound. Our lives are intertwined with that of our Obier. We can share thoughts. The Fae language comes to us fully formed once bound. Some of the lightless have managed to teach themselves how to speak Fae, but it's a very difficult language and some of the sounds don't come naturally unless you are bonded.
Talking of Pila, the profound thing she says, like one of them is, love and hate are oil and water, separate but similar, and sometimes they mix. And then Yiren says something to her and she goes, I'm going to go chase a grasshopper. Like, she says this most beautiful thing and then she goes, well, I'm going to go.
When she's put on trial for killing the prince, and then she comes to them and is like, I did thievery, not murder, because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And then she ends up bound. She would have been killed if she wasn't bound. When they say, an offense of thievery may not fit the crime, but it does allow us to seek punishment without jeopardizing an innocent. And then, that's me, Pila said happily. Because then there's this moment about ears. What, do you not compliment each other's ears? Is that what Obier do? Yes. I tell him I like his ears by licking them. Pila, I'm not going to tell Lettle she has nice ears. Well, if you won't tell her, lick them. So many of the quotes in this book are just so beautiful. Mercy is, after all, the antithesis of power. Shut the fuck up.
Speaking of the queerness of it all,
yeah,
the way that gender fluidity and non-binary people are described and trans people are described in this book, motherfucking chef's kiss. This little quote here, like many elves, Matogo's gender was as flexible as the weather, accepted like the fall of rain, and welcomed like the turns of seasons. If I could explain my gender to people in that way, like if people are like, what are you? And I'd be like, oh, just, it's like the weather, it changes all the time. I would love that. That would be perfect.
But instead, we've previously described it as she, her in the way of boats.
Yeah.
And they, them in the way of rats in a trench coat.
Yep, 3 rats in a trench coat.
I also highlighted something about, the beards. This close to him, she could see that his beard had been drawn on in fine ink. He saw her looking. Not all men can grow beards like him. I prefer to draw mine on than drink the tincture that aids in its growth. And then they start talking about like a root that increases hormones in certain ways. And I was like, oh.
It's like, gender affirming care?
Even in
perfectly
fantasy?
Normal.
Hot?
Perfectly normal.
Hot? And then when another quote about like disabilities, they said there are many people with disabilities in the elven lands. War stole limbs and fractured minds, but this was the first time Lettle had seen any replacement leg quite as beautiful as this one. It swirled around the top of his thigh like metal lace, ending with a matching leather boot.
Is Saara El-Arifi queer?
I don't know.
Because if she isn't, pop off. And if she is, pop off. You know what I'm saying? Regardless, you're killing it, babes. There's also this one. Mossima celebrates gender of choice. Celebrates. Not just accepts, not just tolerates, celebrates. I love it.
If she was going to make a fool of herself, at least it would be in the arms of the most beautiful woman in the woodland.
And let's talk about Fury for a second.
Until the cows come home, I shall, in fact. I love her.
As a spiteful, hateful person like myself, I really truly get her. Like, you know how from day one she's like, fuck you, bitch. Like, she hates her, but then it's like,
fuck you,
yeah,
fuck you.
She's like, I'm not backing down on any of this shit. And then it's like, oh, but it seems that the enemies are lovering. Excuse me.
There was literally a quote, and then I noted it. Fury is like being a dick to Yiren. Fair. She did kill her brother. Yiren schooled her features back to neutral. Fury's smile slipped and she glanced away. It seemed to gall her to see Yiren unaffected by her mockery. And I noted the enemies to lovers of it all. Because they do enemies to lovers it so hard. And in a way that is beautiful, because it is enemies to lovers of circumstance and not enemies to lovers of you're a person who's shit. Yeah. And I don't like you, but I kind of want to make out with you. They're on opposites. This is back to our rant about enemies to lovers and how it exists in its entirety exclusively normally in fantasy books. They're enemies because they're on opposite sides of the wall. She killed her brother. Yikes. Can't really come back from that. It's a bit awkward. One of them's an elf and one of them is fae.
It's very
Elfish.
Romeo and Juliet of them.
Without wanting to fuck her cousin and not killing themselves. Spoilers.
Spoilers for a 300-year-old play.
Some people might not know. So Fury's a bitch and I love her for it.
Yeah.
Fury was such a correct name.
I know in a lot of books you read that people, when they're grumpy or bitchy or like shitty people, you're like, are you allowed to be that? Where she is so deservedly allowed to be a cunt. And I love that for her.
She also isn't like a major bitch for no reason. She's just incredibly fierce. And you know what I love? It's a character, especially a woman, who does not subscribe to the idea that women are meant to be polite and chummy, because if she was a man, no one would care.
Bringing back to why Saloua is just not right for Yiren. Saloua cares so much about image and like how she's perceived. They were never allowed to be like together because of politics or whatever. Fury, none of that mattered to her. There's even a scene, isn't there, when she's like fully naked and everyone's like, Fury that's like, are we allowed to be naked? And she's like, what do you mean? It's just a body.
Which is very much the vibe
Yeah.
of the Fae, but they just seem to have a more genuine perception of the people who rule them. She still is out and about with her people, doing the things, not in her little tents, making her little choices, pretending that she's better than everybody, wearing the fucking resource that could save her people as an accessory. And she calls it out as well when they're talking about her. And I'm like, ah! The thing that I thought about when I was like, oh, what makes them so different? She helps them harvest crops.
Yeah.
Her being like, oh, she's always down there doing that thing with the people. Like, he's always actively looking for ways to care about the people in Mosma and not just being like, I want to win a war. No.
Yeah. And also making her a better fit for Yiren. They are both two people who care about their people and are unlikable. They don't care about being likable. And you should always find someone whose values, like their core values, are the same as yours. Even if you're from different places, different whatever, if your core values are the same, then that's why it works.
And here's my TED talk about how unlikable people are hot. Because agreeable people, no backbone. In my old age, I have discovered, and I've learnt to discover, that people who are so concerned with being liked by everybody don't back their own morals enough. Or they're not angry enough about the things they care about. Because how do you look at the world and the way that the world is and not be angry?
Yeah.
And where is that? Where is that when you're just like, oh, I'm going to people please every single person that I meet? You don't like everyone. Not everyone's going to like you. Be disruptive. Sort it out. And that is Fury and Yiren. And that is why they're such a beautiful little match.
And I'll say, as a self-described people pleaser, I struggle with that all the
You've
time.
reformed though.
We're in therapy. We're doing it. I don't care about what people I don't know care about me. I still care about what people I care about me.
But that's
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That makes sense.
But it's
a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope.
Slippery slope.
I love that every podcast episode we get to a point where it's therapy. It's about 10 minutes
Honestly,
of therapy
yeah.
throughout the center of the podcast, and then we get back to the
And
book,
like,
and it's
and
beautiful.
then back to them making
Yeah.
out. Back to the quote that literally says, "One bed it is then." And the prophecy about Lettel and Ryan and the fact that she's gonna kill him. He's not dead. He's the king now, and he's not dead.
And if he knew about the prophecy, I know in my heart that he would be like, I still want to be with you.
But now would he? Because if he dies, it affects
my God,
all
it
of the Fae
does!
lands because he's the fucking king now. Plot twist.
Oh my God.
And when they were like, his mum described who the father of him, who says it like that?
We don't have a lot of experience, so don't worry about it.
When she always described his dad to him, she described it as like the storm's mist or like something like that. And then when they find out who it was, which, oops, it was the prince that Yiren
killed Ryan's dad.
Imagine walking through life in a way where you've killed your girlfriend's brother and your best friend's dad at the same time.
It's a toughie. It's a real toughie. And he knew that he was going to die. And that's why his Obia was like purposefully chasing.
So that's fucked and crushed my soul in its complete entirety as if it already wasn't crushed. And then he becomes the king. And it's like, oh, what? The king?
The king of this land of people that don't really like him.
Correct. And don't accept him because he is not full Fae. Yeah, the prophecy hasn't been fulfilled. And they're very much in love. And she knows this. And because she is so focused on that for so much of the book where she's like, we can't be together because I'm going to kill him, blah, blah, blah. When she starts to get dicked down, she's like, oh, well. They start sleeping together and she's like,
it is what it is, babes.
We've all got to go somehow, you know. I can't stand in the way of the fates. Like, so now
but
you can't stand in the way of the fates.
She did try.
And then she gave up.
Yeah.
And then she gave up.
But it was after she spoke with the seer of Mosama.
Who's Fury's dad.
I love, another tangent, that he was like the queen consort.
Yes.
But he was just like, I'm just vibing. I don't really care about court
like,
life. I'm just
said
here.
a prophecy, they didn't like it, so they kicked me out. Whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm over here with my husband.
When Lettel meets him for the first time and is like becoming his like
apprentice.
Apprentice. Excellent word. Excellent word.
But is that the right word?
I think that I don't know if that's the word used, but that's the word we're going to use right now. She was like, why haven't I seen you around before? Like, who are you? And he's like, I don't concern myself with people who deny the fates. And that hits her like a freight train. She's like, oh, you mean the thing that I've been doing this whole time?
Deny the fates.
Yeah.
Or she's like, oh, well, I can't deny the fates anymore, but at least I can get my little elf back blown out instead.
As she should, honestly. She's let her live. She's had a tough life.
And let him live. Put it away.
Let everyone live. And
Put it
chill
away.
out. Are we taking the prophecy so literally?
Okay, because the other prophecy about the one in this and the one in this and the poison, blah, the poison, Cusco's poison, the poison for Cusco, she thought was going to be about Euron and Fury, but it was about the queens.
Yeah, and that's the thing about prophecies. They're gonna happen, and you gotta vibe.
You gotta vibe. Vibing through prophecy. I'm just vibing through prophecy. So I'm interested to see whether that prophecy actually plays out the way that we think it will, or whether we get a little surprise. And I think we will get a little surprise.
Because knowing Saara El-Arifi, she's surprising us all over the place. And I've said this before, I'm one of those people that I know what's happening in a book from day one.
It's not my business. I don't. You know when you walk on the street, I don't know if you do this with Matt.
You know when you walk on the street?
In all parts of my life, I'm like, la 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 la, I know everything, girl boss, girl boss, girl boss, gatekeep, eat hot chip and lie.
I'm sorry, that's the Girls on Tour t-shirt. That's it right there. Girl boss, gatekeep, la 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 la, eat hot chip and lie. Like that is exactly it.
The moment that you're with Matt, do you just stop using your brain? And just like delulu, just like la 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 la.
I'm an independent, don't need no man until the man is there, and then I'm like, I don't know how to do anything.
I do that in books. I'm just like la la la, the author can take me wherever they want. I'm not like trying to figure shit out, and because it kind of ruins it for me. Like if I can predict something, like I'm happy to be like, no, I didn't see that, so that I get the moment, you know? Which reading this back, I was like, I'm the stupidest bitch because I didn't see, or I don't remember predicting that Comey was the two-bladed tyrant. I don't remember predicting that.
No.
And then I'm literally reading the start and I'm like, he was exiled 10 years ago. He was going to disappear for 10 years. This guy's been here for 10 years. His name is a Comedo. His name is Comey. It's literally the cunt's nickname. And I'm there like, Monique. Monique Kathleen. Like I full named myself. I was like, you stupid bitch. And then I'm also reading it and he's like, oh, I was part of because they were the Crescent tribe. Yeah. And then when he's like, you were a general. And she's like, what were you? And he was like, the war was a long time ago. And like fully deflects that. It's him! What is that? I've had other friends read it since. When I was rereading it, I was like, how did I not fucking see this coming? So I messaged my friend at work, Ella, who read the book, and she predicts everything. So I was like, did you? And she was like, yeah.
That was pretty obvious.
That was really
babes.
obvious. And I was like, okay, cool. Just wanted to check that I'm an idiot. That's cool. But I'm not trying to predict things. I'm not being like, I know how every single thing, like I'm happy to let the author take me on a little ride. Take me on the little ride.
But I will say, I'm usually don't choose to predict the things, but it's a part of the old little worm in the brain.
Yeah.
My little neurodivergence, pattern recognition, yes, is something that my brain does. But in this book, I think because I was just having such a good time, I was just letting the book take me along. But I did realize when before they were taken to Mossima, I was like, why is this Obeah keep coming around? Like, why? I feel like he's sacrificing himself. I was getting that vibe. The Obeah like kept coming, and like she even said like when he dies, the look in his eyes is like a look of acceptance and a look of it's love or something like that. And it's like, Jesus
wept. Our ignorance made victims of us. Ugh. They talk so much in this book as well about, obviously they didn't know that the Fae were real. They didn't know what the Obeah were. They were just doing things. They talk so much about people being awful out of ignorance, which do be so relevant to all of our lives. And in a way where like, I think it's really interesting to analyze the perspective between being a victim to your ignorance and being responsible for changing your ignorance. Like just as people moving through the world, especially as white people, there's a point of analyzing the behavior that people do out of ignorance and at what point are they accountable to tackle their own ignorance. So it was really interesting to see it play out in like a fantasy space where they were like, I didn't know. There's a moment where she says like a slur basically. She says like sun sins or something. Yeah, she says sun sins, and then someone was like, you'll get killed for that. And she was like, what? Anyway, no one will actually kill you for saying sun sins, but the expression is derogatory. It's rooted in bigotry towards the Fae by suggesting our creation in the sun's light was a sin. Euron's eyes widen. Oh, you didn't realize? She shook her head. I guess I'd never thought about the word's origins. No one ever does. I happen to have an interest in etymology. How much had elves contributed to the vilification of the Fae throughout history?
This comes up so often. Like there's so many words that are just in like a normal like general vernacular that have come from like the etymology is bad, is Slurtown. Slurtown. There is a place for like, if you don't know, now you know. There is a place where you can be like, I was ignorant to that, but now I do know the reasoning or the thing behind it. That's when you have the choice to change your behavior.
Whether your ignorance is forgiven or not, I think is entirely up to the decision of the person of which you've caused offense. In this setting, for some of the Fae, they'd be like, well, she doesn't know. Obviously, she doesn't know.
Yeah.
So how could she know? But other people would be like, no, fuck you. That's super offensive. And that's totally their right as well.
Yeah.
I think as we're growing up, we all perpetuate the culture that is taught to us and normalized and forced upon us. Forced upon us, really. And it's only when you are exposed to new people and new ideas and an awareness that maybe what you're saying is hurtful to somebody. I think that is the point of difference for me, where I think the difference between an ignorant person and a willfully ignorant person.
Yeah.
And that is the point of where I lose or gain respect for someone. If you've never heard queer terminology, trans terminology, and you're using things or saying things that are offensive, I think about this a lot because I have nephews and nieces who are high school age. And that is the time for us when you are being exposed to funny vernacular, funny slang, all of these things without really being exposed to why they are or what they mean. And then you're coming into contact with realizing that maybe things that you've said or things that you do or the way that you speak about someone or to someone might be hurtful or offensive to them. Do you change that? Or do you go, oh, I didn't know, and then keep doing it or act like you don't have a responsibility then to change it? Because in my mind, it's fucking simples.
Yeah.
I do or have a behavior that hurts somebody else, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be someone I know. Doesn't have to be someone I care about. If I know that that's going to be hurtful to somebody, I don't want to do that.
That's literally like my life motto. I'm like, you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. Like if you're being hurtful, that's when you need to change your behavior.
And this is where I get into a rage about people refusing to learn how to use pronouns. Because why do people, we'll bring this back to the book somehow, why do people only believe that they have to respect the lived experience that is theirs? That's my question.
Wow.
Because when you are a cisgendered person and you look at trans people, when you look at non-binary people, when you look at people who have completely transitioned, who are partway through their transition, who haven't started their transition at all, and you go, I don't understand what you're experiencing. So,
yeah.
Do you care about how you speak to that person and how you speak about them and how interacting with you makes them feel? Do you want someone to leave your presence feeling worse? Does it mean so much to you to not change something that means nothing to you to hurt someone else?
To bring it to like such a base level, I don't understand physics.
Fishing. Oh.
I don't understand fishing. I don't understand maths, but I know that
those things are
real and they're none of my business. I can accept that those things are real and I have to interact with those in the world. It's that whole thing when people use, you know, they, them pronouns or plural pronouns. So you're basing your opinion on an assumption of what their gender is. Say you were standing in front of me with your back turned. I could make an assumption of what your pronouns were from there. But again, that's my assumption. That's not your lived experience. It's all based on assumption, and that's where I think people, as soon as you're told, that's what it is.
For those in the room who are stressed about pronouns, who are stressed about not making people uncomfortable, people know how they present to the world.
Yeah.
People know what people are going to assume based on what they look like. People know that. Even if it's not how they align, they know how they are perceived by people. Be gentle and accepting about the fact, and don't make it weird. Don't be like, oh, I'm so sorry, and make them have to reassure you. Just be like, cool, my bad. Anyway.
Do you know what you can just do?
Fine.
Hey, what are your pronouns?
And you should do that in public spaces because it makes people feel safe to share their pronouns who might otherwise not feel safe to share their pronouns.
Oh my God. Okay. As someone who uses multiple pronouns, as I do, I feel, and like I have it on my Instagram bios, I even have it on my work email tag at the moment. It's so uncomfortable when, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but like I'm popping my pronouns out into the world and that's not being reciprocated. I'm like, I'm showing you everything. Can you show me a little something? Okay, no. All right.
Something.
It's not that hard, babes.
But the way that they use pronouns so fluid and easily in the book.
Delightful. Brought it back.
And I love so much that Saara, our queen, gave us multiple characters who use they, them pronouns, and it wasn't a discussion. Mm-hmm. It's just that's how they were referred to. Even if it isn't something that you've used and it doesn't make sense to you, language is fucking made up, you bitch. Shakespeare made up so much shit. Make it up. Change a thing. Yeah. Words are being invented all the time, and the meanings for them, the slang for them, how they're used, it changes, and they're created and they die constantly.
Yeah.
And that's the rant.
Do you know what I did really enjoy? As someone who's not a religious person and has never been a religious person, like I never grew up in a religious space, I really like how the gods and the teachings, would you say, is that the word? The lore was brought in from every chapter. A little thing from their lore was the beginning of each chapter.
It also describes why the Fae, the elves and the humans were the way they were. I think the humans are going to come back into this.
Oh,
they have to.
Yeah.
Like, surely.
To have like the full circle moment, I feel like they need to. And I feel like the humans and the Fae need to band together to either teach the elves to not be shit or to battle.
The next book is going to be insane. Yiren's gone back to be like, hey, don't
They're
kill our
actually still there.
familiars. They are vibing. They are part of us. Don't kill them anymore, even though you use them as a weapon, which are valuable to you because you're in a war right now. And also, the Fae have joined forces with your enemies. Sorry. That's not going to go well. That's not going to go well. That's not how I'd want to see my ex. Got a new girlfriend. She's hotter than you.
Got a new girlfriend. She's a queen. She actually treats me really well.
Wears gold like a motherfucker. Every outfit they describe of her wearing like liquid chainmail gold, I was like,
Sallow, I could never. I think that's all I needed to say.
all I have to say is I need to read every other thing this author's ever written.
Correct. Let us know how you thought about it in the comments somewhere. Comment somewhere where we can read it. I think there needs to be more people messaging us yelling about stuff.
I agree. Don't be scared. We want to hear your yaps. We are yappers.
We
as
are
the
certified
literal
yappers.
podcast would suggest. Give us a bit of that Yap Daniels. We want a little taste of that venti yappuccino.
Yo.
Hit us with it.
When you're coming home, son, I don't know when.
We'll
get together then.
This episode's been all over the place, and I think it's a solid reflection of where our brains are at. So if you wanted this to make like consistent, flowy effort,
That's on you.
you're in the wrong place.
That's
babe.
your fault.
Here in Illyria, we
don't discriminate based on gender.
And that's where we're ending it. If you haven't already shared them, we need to hear your thoughts on this month's book. In order to have spoiler-free chats about the books that we're reading, we are using the book club app Fable. It's free, it's quick and easy to make an account and keep up to date with the Girls on Tour book club. There are 2 separate book clubs, one for the non-fiction book and one for the fiction books. Make sure you head over to our Instagram, TikTok and YouTube page at the start of every month to see what book is coming next. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching if you're watching this on YouTube.